Well, hi again, folks. I'm Greg Flynn, the Public Information Director here for the City of Pearl, and we are going to go under the dome for the first time this year as the legislature is in session. And joining us, our good friends, Senator Dean Kirby, Senator.
Thank you.
And Representative Gene Newman, who is, you can see these guys all around town. There's a lot of places where, you may not know your representatives or your senators. You find these guys everywhere around town. So,
especially when it comes to eating.
Restaurants, absolutely.
That's true.
With such good ones we have here in Pearl, you can be sure to catch them. Well, gentlemen, I know it's been long awaited. The session's open and business is already getting done, right, Senator?
Oh, absolutely. Only thing we've passed on the floor, the House has passed a couple of bills, I think, but the Senate, we've done like 25 commending resolutions and those type of things. Things like the Vietnam veterans, 50th anniversary of those that were POWs being released, and and moving everyone out. That's 50th anniversary. Those type of things we've done, and in commending Pearl and other schools that won different things. So
all the easy stuff. You get that out of the way early.
Get that out of the way. Well, that's probably 25 out of 200 that we'll have. Yeah,
it's the low-hanging fruit, but
that's because on the surface, it's like one of those ducks. It's ducks just gliding along. Underneath, they pedaling like crazy because the House had more bills introduced this year than's ever been introduced. There were 1,900. That's all right. It actually may be over 2,000 that got introduced, and then all those in the Senate. So the Speaker's office and the Lieutenant Governor's office, both of those offices are just jammed up because they have to decide what committees those bills are going to, and then approve them and get them sent over. So a lot of work going on in the background.
Well, and it's one of those things that I think as the public should understand. Yes, the deadline for general bills to be introduced. Well, 2,000 bills, including more than 2,000 bills as we count the Senate, most of those aren't going anywhere. I mean, you can introduce a bill for anything, and a lot of them have. And so for the most part, it all gets whittled down, and there's very, very few that will actually see action.
But the chairman still have to read every bill and see what they do and make sure what code sections are in them, because it could be another reason for introducing that crazy bill just to get the code section so it can be amended. So it's a lot of work. Last Tuesday, Lieutenant Governor and I met with the Speaker and the Speaker Pro Tem, and we were leaving. The Speaker told us that they had over a week ago, almost a week ago now, they had over 1,900 bills, and we had 800. So we're going to hit over 3,000 bills that we've got 90 days to dispose of.
Well, and most of them are, the little insider information. If you see a bill that has gone to 2 or more committees to be considered, that's not going anywhere this session, right?
Maybe.
For the most part.
There's reasons that they send them to two committees sometimes, and it's necessary to do that, and to make sure that the language is right from both perspectives. You send something to transportation and something to Judge B, and people say, well, that don't make any sense, or whatever it may be, and it's simply you got two different perspectives that you got to look at that from. That you got more lawyers to get involved to make sure it's right.
Yeah, and even local and private bills for the cities and counties, if it's got any type of revenue in it or tax structure in it at all, it'll go to local and private, then it'll go to finance or ways and means.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have a lot of bills to consider. We'll see how all those 3,000 get whittled down, but Representative Newman, you've already had a bill that's gone through that I know that you're very passionate about. It is House Bill 1125. That has to do with transgender procedures.
That's correct. Back during the summer, I learned that they were doing procedures on individuals under 18 at a hospital, and they were doing drug therapy, so puberty blockers and those kind of things to start the process of changing someone's sex. I have issues with that. If a child can't make up their mind to do the things that they're not legal to contract under the age of 18, they certainly shouldn't be changing their body forever under the age of 18. They can wait till they're 18 years old and make a rational decision at that point. And the issue, my biggest issue with that is that you have parents who are drug users who are willing to sell their children, and in the process of selling their children, the person buying may want the sex change. So you don't know what's going on in the background, so it's just better to wait till 18.
So your bill does prohibit even parents from saying, okay, providing their approval. This just says no, not at all.
Yeah, not at all. And there's no penalty against the person, the child, obviously, and there's no penalty against the parent if they decide they want to try to do it. But there is a severe penalty against doctors, medical providers of any kind, or doctors, nurse practitioners, or anybody else that may do it, and a rather severe penalty against hospitals. It takes away their ability to not get sued, and it puts a 30-year, takes a 30-year, my mind just went blank, the ability to get sued for 30 years.
Okay, so
Liability.
the liability.
The liability tail extends for 30 years. So,
Well,
because if they do it to that child when they're 17 years old, and they realize what they've done when they're in their 40s, and they realize how bad it's messed up their life, then they can go back against that hospital.
Or even in their 20s. I mean, even
Right,
if they have,
yeah.
I mean, my goodness. And this is one of those things that is not a national issue that you're just introducing. This is actually going on here in the state.
Correct. It's happening here now. I mean,
Well,
now
not
they've apparently, supposedly, they've stopped it now. I mean, but it was happening, and I don't, just because somebody tells me, well, they're not doing it anymore, it's not good enough. We need to make sure that they can't do it.
Senator, and you said there's a similar
It is.
bill in the Senate.
Yeah, and I've talked with folks at UMC and all, and they denied that they were doing any type of surgery at UMMC, but they were dispensing prescription drugs for hormones and all. So supposedly they're not doing that now. We need to let everyone know that was not state money. It's not something that the state legislature did. It was private funds and federal funds, but they were doing it in a state facility. So now private hospital, like he was talking about, the bill will even stop that. We have 5 bills that I've seen in the Senate doing the same thing that his bill did. So I feel like that we'll pass something, and I appreciate Gene doing that.
Well, we'll have to track that. That is House Bill 1125, which is sitting over in the Senate now, passed by the House, so we will keep a close eye on that one for you. One thing that is dear to your heart this session is getting hospitals reorganized, because right now, as you said, hospitals are suffering staffing shortages. I mean, anybody that's had to go to an emergency room and then have a hospital stay, it's a nightmare right now.
Yeah, it really is. Let me tell you, first thing we're doing is we're getting so hospitals can work together legally, and if one hospital's full and another one's not, you can actually go from one hospital to the other. They can interchange patients, which is a good thing. Why am I so interested? Well, because I've heard horror stories, so I actually witnessed one. And just before Thanksgiving, I had type B flu. I had the flu shot, by the way, for type A, but I had type B, and I let it go too long, thinking I can whip this type deal at home, and it ended up being pneumonia. Daughter takes me to the hospital. They put me in triage, waiting to get into ER. I go in a room that's like 20 by 20 or whatever, and there's probably 40 people in the room sleeping in sleeping bags on the floor and everything else, waiting to get into ER. Had a good friend from Brandon that had a heart attack. He'd had 2 before and had triple bypass before, actually. He waited in an emergency room having another heart attack for 7 hours. But now, the way it is right now, I'm talking about today, you go in triage, you might be there a full day, then you go into an emergency room, you might be there 3 or 4 days, and then hopefully you'll get a room. Now, they have plenty of rooms, but what they don't have are the nurses and the staff to take care of them. So we kind of saw this coming a year ago or more, And because of that, we're building a new nursing school at Hines Community College, which is going to be unbelievable here in Rankin County. We're giving all the community colleges that have, and colleges that are public, not private, we're giving them money to increase the nursing. Now, why do we all at once have this terrible nursing shortage? Even though, I mean, they have the rooms and we have the nurses, but the nurses, a lot of them aren't in Mississippi. They're traveling nurses, and they could be at Ochsner's in New Orleans or in Los Angeles or wherever, anywhere in the nation. And it's because they were making so much more money traveling than they could make here. And, you know, you got to feed your family, and I understand that. But it's just kind of a crazy deal when we'll have a nurse maybe from Louisiana, and then they have one of ours. You know, we need to work it out. But we have a serious problem with not just rural hospitals that don't even have the physicians. I mean, it's a real problem. We've got to help our patients first and the hospital second. And so we've got to make sure that we do something to take care of the people that are really sick.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we hear, you know, the focus is on rural hospitals. There's no facilities for them. But this is a metro problem. I mean, you don't know it until you have to go to a hospital, unfortunately. But
that's right.
My goodness, can you imagine? Well, you can, but having to sit and waiting in the waiting room for 5, 6, 7 hours, and then you wind up having to stay in the emergency room,
3 or 4 days.
For 3 or 4 days before you can even sniff getting a room upstairs. I mean, that's got to come at a great cost for these true emergencies that are coming in. It's crazy, isn't it, Gene?
It is crazy, and the worst bed in the world is an ER bed.
Yeah.
That's the most uncomfortable place that you can ever stay.
It is.
I've had the privilege of staying there one night, but what'd you lose though? Okay.
Yeah. I still got it.
The hospitals, you know, they keep hollering about the rural hospitals, and the biggest problem is their business model is failing. It's not necessarily that the people don't need health care, but their business model. And to give you a real quick example of what I'm talking about, when those hospitals were put in and the way they're still continuing to be operated, people would go in the hospital for appendicitis and have their appendix removed or their tonsils removed, and they'd stay there for 3 or 4 days, 5 or 6 days. Now it's an outpatient procedure. You know, they don't need hospitals for those kind of measures. You know, we need hospitals in all through Mississippi that can handle emergency situations, that can take care of people on a short term, and then get them moved to if they need the longer term care, they can get them moved to a larger hospital. What they're doing now in most of these small hospitals, where they're trying to still operate the way they did when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, it's not working, and that's what's killing them. And in addition to the fact that if you think it's hard to get nurses in and around Jackson, go to Greenville, Mississippi, and try to hire a nurse. So it's the same issue.
Greenville, all those.
Yeah, all of. I mean, but I just used one for example. But I mean, it's they've got to change their business model. And don't come up here with your hand out for money when you're not doing something different.
Well, and you know, Senator, as you said, to fix the metro, we've just got to get more people, number one, trained up. You need more nurses. But number two, getting them to stop with the travel nursing.
Oh, that's right. And now, of course, that money's running out. That was COVID money, federal money to hire these travel nurses at these unbelievable salaries. But, you know, let me tell you, I didn't have to wait 3 or 4 days, and it had nothing to do with me being a senator. The reason I didn't have to wait 3 or 4 days is I texted my daughter while I was in triage, and she was out in the waiting area, and I said, "Get a nurse, I'm about to faint." And I punched it, and next thing I know, they're taking me to a room. When you pass out, they will until you get to that point. So I'm not going to tell people fake a passing out, but that's definitely the only reason I got a room. And they sent me home after 3 days and told me then, "You're not ready to go home, but we've got to have the room."
Mm. Wow.
So I mean, it's horrible. It's you know, I don't know. I feel like we're not taking care of the people like we should be. And I'll tell you something else that's happening is everyone wants to, all these doctors now are specialists. You know, there's very few family practitioners anymore. Everyone wants to specialize in something. Well, when they become specialists, where do they want to be? They want to be where the people are. It's like, why'd you rob the bank, Willie Sutton?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's where the money is.
That's exactly right.
And so that's exactly why these specialists, they want to be in the Jackson metro area because they can make a lot more money. And so because of that, some of the specialists don't want to go to some of these rural hospitals. And, you know, I understand that. But we've got to do something. And I think Gene was right. They've got to, used to, years ago, if you lived in rural Mississippi and you had to have some major surgery, you had to go to St. Dominic's, or you had to go to Baptist, or you had to go to UMC to have the major surgery. And now all the rural hospitals are trying to, they all got MRI machines, they've got all these things. You know, the rural hospitals should deliver babies and should take care of their people, like you say, with the small things, but the major surgery, you know, you got to go where the surgeons are. So,
well, we will be tracking that, and hopefully there's something that can be positive light coming out of the hospital. I want to close on a positive note. We've got some great infrastructure projects that are working here in Rankin County. One of those that if you go down South Pearson Road, it's kind of like that back way into Richland. You will notice that the Pearl-Richland Intermodal is going along on schedule, right, Mr. Newman?
It's bumping along. They're almost to the point where they're going to set the actual bridge over the railroad tracks. That's going to be one piece. They're going to pick it up and put it up there.
and that not only will move traffic, that will save lives. You know, I think I've told the story before about Pearl Fire Department a few years ago going up to the railroad and a train stopped
waiting right
and
there.
they watch a house burn, you know, and what if the guy had been having a heart attack, you know, instead of the house burning. So, yeah, that's a good thing for Pearl. And I'm so glad that our mayor, and by the way, not just Pearl mayor, but all the Rankin County mayors are really good mayors. And they work hard and they don't mind asking the legislature for help, I can tell you.
Well, it's going to be a big show, and we're going to help document that because there's apparently a huge crane that has to be brought in. It's not local, certainly. It's national. They're going to bring in a crane that has to be constructed on site that is going to be able to lift the spans all in one piece, as you said. This is going to take place in the spring. They tell us April, weather permitting, and that's going to be really quite a sight to see.
Yeah, and of course, so that people will know, the phase 2 of that is the 4-lane on the other side of the railroad all the way into Richland. So that'll be a major road going through and move a lot of traffic and help a lot of people. And again, like I say, may save lives.
And economic development, being able to put industrial
Absolutely.
parks out there and, you know, a little quicker access there to Highway 49. Which
Absolutely.
That's done. And it's working. Highway 49.
49 is beautiful.
49, it is.
And Gene was right. If you go down 49, it was so many years it was 4-lane, and now they've added this other lane, and everyone stays in those same lanes, and no one drives in the right lane. So if you're going south or coming up 49, just get in the right lane, far right lane, because there's not any traffic in that one at all.
Well, one other quick update before we go, MDOT related, West Rankin Parkway. You know, the Department of Transportation said that the project would have to be rebid because of issues that were found within the roadbed there.
That's right.
And so that's why we're seeing the delay. You know, is there any light at the end of that tunnel?
Well, yeah, it's got to be rebid. They're working on it still right now because they haven't finished everything they were supposed to do, but it's got to be rebid because of some dirt issues. And gosh, I don't even want to give you a completion date on it now, but I mean, it's closer than it was, but It's still, you know, I was ready for it. I introduced that bill for that in I think it was 93. It could have been 95. It was either 93 or 95, one of those 2 years. That's how long we've been working on that project.
Well, we've seen construction going on there since what, 2016 is when they start, 17 is when they broke ground to actually start the roadway.
That's about right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Now, let me tell you about that road, because I was involved in it from the beginning. In the beginning, the owners of that property not only gave the land for that highway, and it will be a highway, by the way, so the state will maintain it and not the cities. But they not only gave the land for that road, they also put their money where their mouth was. They gave $750,000 toward that project, the landowners. So, you know, they knew that it was needed as well. So it's, yeah, but it's getting there. It's just not, every time we think we're really getting somewhere, we have another dirt issue, or we have, some, because of the dirt, maybe some broken pipes or culverts or whatever, and then of course there was a lawsuit that had to be settled with one of the landowners because of some flood issues, and but all that's been done now. Yeah, everything. I mean, all they got to do is rebid it and get to work.
So just trying to manage expectations.
And they have the money. They have the money. I mean, it's not like waiting on the money from someone.
Yeah, it's just waiting on the work. Well, and it's just to manage expectations, because, you know, we see East Metro Parkway is about to come online. They're getting very, very close over there. So
Speaking of East Metro, so that people know, I put in a bill to put a red light at East Metro and El Dorado.
Yeah.
If they see that bill die, don't panic, because there's probably not going to be any bond bills this year, and even if there are, everything's put into one. But if they see that bill die, don't panic, because it will probably be in appropriations, and I've gotten favorable response from the chairman, so we'll see. I think we can get that red light put in there.
Well, I think it's definitely going to be needed for sure.
You got to have it. It can't do without a red light there.
Anybody that's driven up El Dorado, that's a lot of lanes of traffic to have to clear without anywhere to stop for motorists. So right. I think a red light will be very, very helpful. Doesn't exactly go along with the parkway concept, but it's for safety. We don't want to have to lose somebody until they say, okay, well, now we'll give you a red light. I like to, very proactive, very proactive. Well, gentlemen, we appreciate you coming in.
Well, thank you.
Hey, folks, I want to encourage you that any time that you want to track any of the bills and see the legislation on a day-to-day basis, you can go to the legislature website. That is legislature.ms.gov. And, of course, these guys are always willing to take your phone calls, answer your emails. So reach out. They're two of the best in the state, and we're blessed to have them right here, not only in Pearl, but representing Rankin County. So until next time, we will go under the dome once again. Have a great day.